The cold bit through my threadbare coat as I stood on the corner of 5th and Madison, my fingers numb, despite the woolen gloves with frayed tips that exposed my reddened skin. February in New York was brutal, especially when you spent 12 hours a day on the street. The roses and lilies in my basket had wilted slightly at the edges. Still beautiful, but beginning to show the same exhaustion I felt in my bones. Fresh flowers, beautiful bouquets. My voice was hoarse from repeating the same phrase all day, the words carried away by the bitter wind that sliced between the towering buildings. No one looked at me. They hurried past in their designer coats and shining boots, eyes fixed ahead or glued to phone screens, as if making eye contact with someone like me might somehow stain their perfect lives. I was invisible, just another desperate soul trying to survive in a city that had no room for the broken. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since the stale bagel I'd managed to buy at half price from the bakery before dawn. If I didn't sell at least 3 more bouquets, I wouldn't make rent again, and Mr. Peterson had already warned me twice. 1 more late payment, and I'd be out on the street, along with Emma. Emma. My heart constricted at the thought of my 5-year-old daughter waiting at Mrs. Gonzalez's apartment, probably hungry, and wondering when Mommy would come home, since Mike had disappeared 6 months ago, taking what little savings we had and leaving behind nothing but crushing debt. It had been just us, just me, trying desperately to keep us afloat. A sleek black Bentley slowed to a stop at the curb ahead of me, its windows tinted so dark they seemed to absorb the fading daylight. Even through my exhaustion, I registered how out of place it looked in this part of town. The engine purred quietly, a sound of wealth and power that made the hairs on my neck stand up. Last chance, I whispered to myself, plastering on what I hoped was an inviting smile as I moved toward the car, clutching my pathetic bouquets. Beautiful flowers for your sweetheart? Valentine's Day special. The rear window lowered with a smooth electronic hum. I couldn't see inside, just darkness, but I could feel eyes on me. The sensation was strange, like being x-rayed, examined, dissected. How much? The voice that emerged was deep, accented with something Eastern European, and carried the unmistakable tone of a man accustomed to being obeyed. $20 for the premium arrangements, I said quickly, holding up my best bouquet, a mix of red roses, white lilies, and baby's breath wrapped in brown paper and tied with a simple twine bow. 15 for the smaller ones. A hand emerged from the darkness, large, masculine, with a heavy gold signet ring on the pinky finger. Long fingers that looked strong enough to snap the stems I was holding. Or a neck. Give me the best one. I passed him the premium bouquet, careful not to brush against those powerful fingers. As he took it, the interior light flicked on, and I caught my first glimpse of him. He was older than me, maybe late 30s or early 40s, with sharp, aristocratic features that seemed carved from marble. Black hair with distinguished silver at the temples was slicked back from a high forehead. His jawline was strong, shadowed with precisely maintained stubble. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Piercing blue, cold as Arctic ice, yet burning with an intensity that seemed to pin me in place. He wasn't conventionally handsome. There was something too hard, too dangerous in his features for that. But he was magnificent in the way that predators are, a perfect killing machine that you can't help but admire even as you fear it. His suit probably cost more than 6 months of my rent, the charcoal fabric clearly tailored to fit broad shoulders and a lean waist. A blood-red tie provided the only splash of color against a crisp white shirt. "You look frozen." His accent curled around the words, making them sound like both a statement and an accusation. I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant while fighting the urge to shiver. Part of the job. His eyes narrowed slightly as they moved over my face, down to my worn coat, and back up. Something flickered in his expression. Not pity. Something darker, more assessing. He extended a hand holding a $100 bill. "Keep the change." The gesture should have been generous, but something in his manner made it feel like a test. I reached for the money, my fingers trembling slightly, whether from cold or something else, I couldn't say. "Thank you, sir." I tried to step back, but his voice stopped me. "Wait." The command was soft but unmistakable. My body responded before my brain could process, freezing in place. He was still studying me, those ice blue eyes seeming to strip away layers, seeing things I didn't want seen. My desperation, my fear, my exhaustion. I felt suddenly naked despite the layers of clothing, vulnerable in a way that made my heart race. "What's your name?" he asked. Something warned me not to answer. Some primal instinct for self-preservation, but I needed that $100. I needed to feed Emma. "Lily," I said, the irony of sharing a name with the flowers in his hand not lost on me. "Lily," he repeated, as if tasting the word. Like the flower, pure, delicate. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, yet surprisingly resilient. A shiver that had nothing to do with the cold ran down my spine. Behind him, I noticed another man for the first time, massive, with a neck as thick as my thigh and small, watchful eyes. A bodyguard, silent and menacing. "How much for all of them?" The man in the Bentley gestured to my basket. I blinked in surprise. "All of them? That would be $160. There were 8 bouquets left. Without hesitation, he pulled out a thick wallet and counted out $200 bills. "Load them in the car." The back door opened, and the mountain of a man emerged, reaching for my basket. I handed it over, watching as my entire day's inventory disappeared into the luxurious interior. "Thank you," I said, clutching the money tightly. "This is very generous. I'm not finished," the man said, his eyes never leaving my face. "The flowers are beautiful, but I find myself wanting the complete package." Confusion must have shown on my face, because the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. "Get in the car, Lily." My blood turned to ice. "Excuse me?" "I want the bouquets," he said, his voice deceptively soft. "And I want you." I took a step back, alarm bells screaming in my head. I'm not propositioning you," he said, a hint of amusement coloring his tone. "I'm offering you a job, a legitimate one, with better pay than freezing on street corners." "What kind of job?" I asked, suspicion evident in my voice. "Come to dinner with me, and I'll explain." He held up a hand when I started to protest. "In a public restaurant, surrounded by witnesses." The way he said it made it clear he was mocking my fear rather than trying to alleviate it. "I can't. I have to get home to my daughter." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps, or interest. "Bring her. My driver will pick her up first." I laughed, the sound brittle even to my own ears. "You think I'd let a stranger pick up my child? Are you insane?" Instead of anger, my outburst seemed to please him. He leaned forward, and I caught a whiff of his cologne, something expensive and masculine that smelled of cedar and smoke. "Smart," he said softly. "A good mother should be protective." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, extending it between 2 fingers. "Anton Volkov. You can Google me. I own several restaurants and nightclubs in the city. Legitimate businesses." The name triggered a distant memory, a newspaper article or TV segment about the rising Russian influence in New York's business scene. The card was heavy, cream-colored cardstock with embossed black lettering and a simple logo. "Call your babysitter," he continued. "Tell her you'll be late. I'll have you home by midnight." "Why me?" I blurted out. "Why do you care if I'm freezing on a street corner?" His eyes traveled over my face again, lingering on my lips for a moment before returning to my eyes. "Let's just say I appreciate beauty in unexpected places." The compliment should have warmed me, but instead it sent another chill through my body. There was something predatory in his appreciation. "I don't know you," I said. "That's the purpose of dinner, to get to know each other." He checked an expensive watch on his wrist. "You have 30 seconds to decide, Lily. My time is valuable." I should have walked away. Every instinct screamed danger. But the money in my hand, more than I could make in 2 days of selling flowers, felt heavy with possibility. Rent could be paid. Emma could eat something besides ramen noodles and discount bread. 1 hour, I said firmly, in a public place. And I choose the restaurant. A smile spread across his face, transforming his features from merely striking to devastatingly attractive. It didn't reach his eyes. "You're negotiating with me. Interesting." He nodded once. 1 hour. You choose. But I'm buying. The bodyguard opened the rear door wider, a clear invitation. I hesitated, my mind racing through options. If I gave him a fake address, I could get out of the car and disappear. But something told me Anton Volkov was not a man who let things, or people, slip through his fingers easily. With a deep breath, I stepped forward and slid into the leather seat, the warmth of the car's interior an immediate relief from the biting cold. The door closed behind me with a solid thunk that sounded disturbingly final. Anton sat beside me, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. The scent of his cologne was stronger in the confined space, mixing with the leather and the flowers now piled on the floor. "A wise decision," he said, his voice low as the car pulled smoothly away from the curb. I clutched my purse tightly on my lap, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life, or if this strange encounter might somehow be the miracle I'd been praying for. Either way, I had the sinking feeling that after tonight, nothing in my world would ever be the same again. The restaurant I chose was a small Italian place in Little Italy, public enough to feel safe, but not so upscale that I'd feel completely out of place. I'd been there once, years ago, when Mike and I had celebrated our first anniversary. Before everything fell apart. When I gave the address to Anton's driver, his eyebrows lifted slightly in the rearview mirror. But he said nothing. Anton himself merely nodded, his expression revealing nothing of what he thought about my choice. "I need to call my babysitter," I said, pulling out my ancient flip phone. Anton's eyes flicked to the outdated device, and I felt a flush of embarrassment heat my cheeks. His own phone probably cost more than all my possessions combined. "Of course," he said simply, turning his gaze to the window to give me a semblance of privacy in the close confines of the car. "Mrs. Gonzalez answered on the third ring, the sounds of children playing in the background. "Lily, are you okay?" "Yes, I'm fine," I said quickly. "Something came up. A potential job opportunity. Could you keep Emma a little longer? I'll pay you extra." There was a pause, and I could practically see her concerned frown. "You know I don't mind watching her, but are you sure everything is all right? You never stay out this late." I was acutely aware of Anton beside me, pretending not to listen, but undoubtedly catching every word. "Everything's fine," I assured her, injecting confidence into my voice. "I should be back by 9 at the latest." "Okay, mija. Be careful." "I will, thank you." As I hung up, I caught Anton watching me, those piercing blue eyes contemplative. "You're a single mother," he said, not a question. Yes, I didn't elaborate, didn't tell him about Mike or the debt or how close we were to homelessness. My problems weren't his business. "How old is your daughter?" 5. Despite my reservations, I couldn't keep the softness from my voice when I thought of Emma. "What's her name?" I hesitated, then reminded myself that he could probably find out anything he wanted to know about me with a snap of his fingers. "Emma." "Pretty name," he said, and for a moment, something almost human crossed his features. Then it was gone, replaced by that cool, assessing look. "So, Lily, tell me about yourself." "There's not much to tell," I said, defensive. "I sell flowers." And before that, I shifted uncomfortably. "I worked in an office. Administrative assistant. What happened?" "The company downsized." It wasn't exactly a lie. The company had downsized after Mike embezzled from them and disappeared, leaving me to face the music. They hadn't pressed charges. They couldn't prove I knew anything, but they'd made it clear I was no longer welcome. Word had spread, and no one else would hire me either. Anton seemed to sense there was more to the story, but he didn't press. "And the flowers? I buy them wholesale from the flower market early in the morning, arrange them myself, sell them during the day." I shrugged. "It's not glamorous, but it's honest work." "Honest work," he repeated, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Yes, I suppose it is." The car slowed, and I realized we had arrived at the restaurant. Before the driver could exit, Anton reached across me and opened my door himself. The movement brought him close enough that I could feel his breath on my cheek, warm and smelling faintly of mint. "After you," he said, pulling back to allow me to slide out. The sidewalk was crowded with the evening dinner rush. As I stepped out of the car, Anton followed smoothly, moving to stand beside me with a fluid grace that belied his size. His bodyguard materialized from the front passenger seat, scanning the area with practiced efficiency before nodding almost imperceptibly to his boss. I expected to be led straight into the restaurant, but instead, Anton offered me his arm. "You're shivering," he observed, and I realized he was right. Despite the car's warmth, the cold had seeped back into my bones the moment we stepped outside. Hesitantly, I placed my hand on his forearm, feeling solid muscle beneath the expensive wool of his suit. He guided me toward the entrance, the crowd parting instinctively before him like water breaking around the bow of a ship. The hostess looked up as we entered, her eyes widening slightly as she took in Anton's imposing figure. "Good evening, sir, madam. Do you have a reservation?" "No, but I'm sure you can find us a table." Anton's voice was pleasant enough, but there was an underlying steel that made it clear he expected to be accommodated. The hostess glanced at her reservation book, then at the packed dining room. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're fully booked for the evening. Perhaps if you'd like to wait at the bar." "That won't be necessary." Anton reached into his pocket and discreetly slipped her what I suspected was a $100 bill. "I'm sure something suitable will become available." She hesitated for only a moment before palming the money. "Of course, sir. Let me see what I can do." As she hurried away, I frowned up at Anton. "You didn't have to do that." "I always get what I want, Lily." His eyes held mine, the message clear. One way or another. A chill that had nothing to do with the temperature ran down my spine. The hostess returned moments later, all smiles. "Right this way, please." She led us to a table in the back corner. Intimate, but still within view of other diners. A candle flickered in the center of the white tablecloth, casting golden light across Anton's sharp features as he pulled out my chair. His bodyguard took up position at a small table nearby, facing the entrance. "Your server will be right with you," the hostess said, handing us menus before disappearing. I opened the menu, then nearly choked when I saw the prices. Pasta dishes for $30, steaks for $50 or more. I'd chosen this place remembering it as affordable, but either my memory was faulty or inflation had hit hard. "Order whatever you want," Anton said, not even bothering to look at his menu. "Money is not a concern." I bristled slightly at his presumption. "I'm not here for your money, Mr. Volkov." His lips curved into that not-quite smile again. "Anton, please, and why are you here, Lily?" The question caught me off guard. Why was I here? Curiosity? Desperation? The lure of a legitimate job that might pull Emma and me out of our financial hole? "You said something about a job offer," I reminded him. Yes." He leaned back as a waiter approached with a bottle of wine, obviously sent over without being ordered. The waiter presented it to Anton, who nodded approval without really looking. After the wine was poured and the waiter had taken our orders, I chose the least expensive pasta dish despite Anton's urging to select something else. Anton fixed those ice blue eyes on me again. "I own several businesses, as I mentioned," he began. "One is a high-end floral boutique in Soho. We cater to celebrities, society events, luxury hotels." I blinked in surprise. "A flower shop?" "Much more than a shop," he corrected. "An atelier of floral design. The creative director recently left to start her own business, poaching several of our designers in the process." His jaw tightened momentarily, the only indication that this betrayal had angered him. "I need someone with an eye for beauty and arrangement. Someone who understands flowers." "And you think that's me?" I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice. "Based on what, seeing me sell bouquets on a street corner?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. On it was a photo of one of my bouquets. Not the simple ones I'd been selling today, but one of my special arrangements I sometimes created when I had extra flowers. It was an intricate design with roses, orchids, and wildflowers, arranged in a spiral pattern that drew the eye inward. "You left this at a coffee shop 3 days ago," he said. "The owner put it on display. I happened to be there for a meeting and noticed it." He put the phone away. It showed talent. Untrained, perhaps, but genuine. When I asked about it, the barista mentioned a young woman who sometimes sold flowers nearby. He shrugged elegantly. "I had one of my people keep an eye out for you." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "You've been watching me?" "Curious about you," he corrected smoothly. "And then today, I saw you myself. So what exactly is this job offer?" I asked, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Initially, a designer position. If you prove yourself, perhaps more. He sipped his wine, those eyes never leaving my face. The salary is $90,000 a year plus benefits, health insurance, paid vacation. I nearly choked on my water. $90,000! That's the market rate for skilled floral designers in luxury establishments, he finished for me. I pay well for quality. It was more money than I'd ever made, even in my corporate job. Enough to get us a better apartment, to put Emma in a good school, to stop living hand to mouth. It was too good to be true. Why me? I asked again. You could hire someone with formal training, with a portfolio, with experience in luxury retail. I could, he agreed. But they wouldn't have your spark. His eyes dropped to my lips for a fraction of a second. Besides, I prefer to train people myself, to shape them to my standards. Something about the way he said it, shape them, sent a shiver through me, like I would be clay in his hands. And what would those standards include? I asked carefully. Excellence, loyalty, discretion. He leaned forward slightly. I reward those qualities generously. I do not tolerate their absence. Our food arrived, saving me from having to respond immediately. The pasta was delicious, but I barely tasted it, my mind racing through possibilities and warnings. Do you need time to think about it? Anton asked after several minutes of silence. I set down my fork. It seems strange that you'd offer such an important position to someone you just met. I trust my instincts, he said simply. They rarely mislead me, and if I say no, his expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in those blue depths. Then I'll have my driver take you home, and we'll never see each other again. He took a sip of wine. But I don't think you'll say no, Lily. Why not? Because I saw the relief in your eyes when I mentioned health insurance. Because your coat has been mended at least 3 times. Because you're wearing shoes with holes in them that you've tried to cover with black marker. His voice was matter of fact, not mocking. You need this job. Your daughter needs this job. I flushed, humiliation burning through me. I hadn't realized how transparent my poverty was. Don't be embarrassed, he said softly. Desperation is not a character flaw. It's a circumstance. I looked up at him, trying to read what lay behind those cold eyes. What did he really want from me? Men like Anton Volkov didn't offer salvation without expecting something in return. As if reading my thoughts, he added, The job is exactly as I've described it. Nothing more, but... A slight smile. Perceptive. The but is simple. Absolute loyalty. My businesses are my domain. I expect my employees to be devoted solely to my interests. That seems reasonable for a job, I said cautiously. Good. He reached into his jacket again, this time pulling out an envelope which he slid across the table. Your first week's salary in advance. Consider it a signing bonus. There's also a company credit card for you to purchase appropriate clothing for the position. I didn't reach for the envelope. I haven't said yes yet. Haven't you? Those blue eyes seemed to see straight through me. And he was right. From the moment he'd mentioned health insurance, my decision had been made. Emma needed stability, security. I would walk through fire to give her that. When would I start? My voice was barely above a whisper. Tomorrow. He signaled for the check. 9 a.m. My driver will pick you up. I need to find childcare for Emma. There's a daycare center in the building for employees' children. She'll be well looked after. Of course there was. Anton Volkov left nothing to chance. The check arrived, and he placed a black credit card on the tray without even looking at the amount. As we waited for the waiter to return, Anton's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening almost imperceptibly. A problem? I asked. Nothing that can't be handled. He slipped the phone away as the waiter returned with his card. We left the restaurant, the night air even colder now. Anton's car was waiting at the curb, the engine running. As we approached, his bodyguard stepped forward to open the door. Just as Anton placed his hand on my back to guide me into the car, a man stumbled into our path. Drunk, disheveled, reeking of alcohol and unwashed clothes. Spare some change? The man slurred, his bloodshot eyes fixing on me rather than Anton. Before I could react, Anton had moved, So quickly I barely saw it, positioning himself between me and the stranger. The change in his demeanor was instant and terrifying. The cool, controlled businessman vanished, replaced by something feral and dangerous. "Step back," Anton said, his voice deadly quiet. The drunk man blinked in confusion, finally seeming to register Anton's presence and the looming figure of the bodyguard. "Hey man, I was just asking the lady." Anton's hand shot out, gripping the man's wrist with such force that he gasped. "You were leaving," Anton corrected, his accent thicker now. "Immediately." Fear sobered the drunk instantly. He nodded frantically, and Anton released him. The man stumbled away, casting frightened glances over his shoulder. Anton turned back to me, straightening his cuffs as if nothing had happened. But I had seen it. The predator beneath the expensive suit, the violence carefully leashed, but ready to be unleashed at a moment's notice. "After you," he said, his voice once again smooth and controlled. I hesitated, suddenly understanding with crystal clarity that getting into that car again meant crossing a line. Anton Volkov was not simply a businessman. The way he moved, the deference of his employees, the cold calculation in his eyes, all pointed to something darker, more dangerous. But the envelope in my purse felt heavy with promise, a future for Emma, security, safety, or at least the illusion of it. I stepped into the car, and Anton slid in beside me, close enough that his thigh brushed against mine. As the car pulled away from the curb, I couldn't help feeling that I had just made a deal with a devil whose terms I didn't fully understand. The Bentley glided through the nighttime streets of New York, the city lights casting fleeting shadows across Anton's face. I clutched my purse containing the envelope, a lifeline and a chain all at once. "Where do you live?" Anton asked, breaking the tense silence. I hesitated, still wary of giving this dangerous man my address. "Queens, Astoria." He nodded, then spoke quietly to his driver in what I assumed was Russian. The car changed direction, heading toward the Queensboro Bridge. "You never asked what happened to the previous creative director," I said suddenly. Anton's eyes flicked to mine, something like approval in their blue depths. "Smart girl. You're right, I didn't say." "So what happened?" "As I mentioned, she left to start her own business." His tone was casual, but there was an underlying hardness to it. "She took proprietary designs and client information with her." "And?" I prompted, sensing there was more. "And nothing." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Her new shop is struggling with unexpected problems, delivery trucks that never arrive, refrigeration units that mysteriously malfunction, building inspectors finding countless code violations." He shrugged elegantly. "The flower business can be surprisingly competitive." My blood ran cold. He wasn't even trying to hide what he was, what he'd done to someone who had crossed him. "Is that a warning?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Let's call it context." Anton turned to face me fully. "I reward loyalty generously, Lily. But I do not tolerate betrayal." His gaze was intense, searching. "I think you understand that better than most. Someone betrayed you too, didn't they? The father of your daughter, perhaps?" I stiffened. "That's personal. In my experience, there's no clear line between personal and professional." His eyes held mine. "We're defined by how we respond to betrayal. Some people break, others adapt." The car turned onto my street, and my heart rate accelerated. "How do you know where I live?" I didn't give an address. That ghost of a smile again. "I have resources." The Bentley stopped in front of my rundown apartment building. The contrast between the luxury car and the crumbling facade was stark, embarrassing. I reached for the door handle, but Anton's hand on my arm stopped me. "My driver will pick you and Emma up at 8 tomorrow morning," he said. "The address is in the envelope, along with your advance." His fingers were warm through the thin material of my coat. "Rest well, Lily. Tomorrow is the beginning of a new life for you both." The intensity in his voice, in those ice-blue eyes, made my breath catch. For a moment, I was frozen, trapped in his gaze like a rabbit before a wolf. Then his driver opened my door, breaking the spell. I stepped out into the cold night air, clutching my purse like a lifeline. "Good night, Mr. Volkov." "Anton?" he corrected, his voice a soft command. Sweet dreams, Lily. The door closed, and the Bentley pulled away, leaving me standing on the cracked sidewalk, wondering if I had just saved my daughter's future or made a deal that would destroy us both. Mrs. Gonzalez's concerned face greeted me when I knocked on her apartment door. Lily, I was getting worried. I'm sorry for being late, I said, glancing past her to where Emma sat on the floor, coloring intently. My heart swelled at the sight of her, dark curls falling over her forehead, tiny tongue poking out in concentration, so innocent and unaware of how close we'd been to disaster. Mommy! Emma looked up, her face lighting with joy as she scrambled to her feet and ran to me. I knelt down, catching her in a tight embrace, breathing in her sweet scent of baby shampoo and crayons. Hi, baby. Did you have fun with Mrs. Gonzalez? She nodded enthusiastically. We made cookies and watched Frozen. Did you sell all your flowers today, Mommy? I did, I said, smoothing her hair back. And guess what? Mommy got a new job today, a better one, where I won't have to be outside in the cold. Her eyes widened. Really? Will you be home more? I'll pick you up every day after work, I promised, and we'll have more money for nice things. Maybe even a bigger apartment someday. Mrs. Gonzalez was watching us, curiosity and concern mingling in her expression. A new job? That's wonderful news, Lily. What will you be doing? Flower arranging at a high-end shop, I said, keeping my voice light. The pay is much better, and there's even a daycare where Emma can go during the day. That sounds too good to be true, she said, echoing my earlier thoughts. How did you find this opportunity? I busied myself with gathering Emma's things, avoiding her eyes. Just luck, I guess. Right place, right time. Mrs. Gonzalez didn't look convinced, but she didn't press. As I reached for my wallet to pay her, she waved me off. Don't worry about it tonight. You can pay me next time. No, please. I pulled out 2 20s from the envelope Anton had given me. In fact, here's extra for staying late. Her eyebrows rose at the crisp new bills, but she took them without comment. As Emma and I headed for the door, she caught my arm. Lily, she said quietly, so Emma couldn't hear. Be careful, mija. Nothing free in this world comes without a price. I nodded, unable to tell her that I was already acutely aware of that fact. Back in our tiny 1-bedroom apartment, I tucked Emma into the fold-out sofa that served as her bed. Our home was small and shabby, but I'd done my best to make it cheerful with colorful throw pillows and drawings Emma had made taped to the walls. Mommy, are we going to be rich now? Emma asked as I pulled the covers up to her chin. I laughed softly. Not rich, sweetheart, but things will be better, I promise. I stroked her cheek. Now go to sleep. We have a big day tomorrow. After she drifted off, I sat at our small kitchen table and emptied the contents of Anton's envelope. Inside was $2,000 in cash. A week's salary, he'd said, though it was more than I usually made in a month, along with a black credit card with my name embossed on it, a business card with the shop's address in Soho, and a contract. I read through the contract carefully. The terms were exactly as Anton had described: $90,000 annual salary, health insurance, 401k, paid vacation. But there were clauses about confidentiality and non-competition that seemed extreme for a flower shop, with penalties for violations that made my blood run cold. As I signed my name on the dotted line, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was signing away something more valuable than I realized. Morning came too quickly. I woke Emma earlier than usual, trying to explain our new routine as I helped her dress in her best clothes, a slightly too small pink dress and white cardigan. We're going to ride in a fancy car, I told her as I braided her dark hair, and you'll go to a new daycare while Mommy works. There will be other children to play with. Will there be toys? She asked, eyes wide with excitement. I'm sure there will be lots of toys, I assured her, hoping I was right. At precisely 8 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Car waiting downstairs. I grabbed our coats and the bag I'd packed with Emma's things, took a deep breath, and led my daughter out to meet whatever future Anton Volkov had in store for us. The same black Bentley was parked at the curb, the driver standing beside it in a crisp black suit. He nodded politely as we approached. Good morning, Miss Carter, he said, opening the rear door. Miss Emma. I was startled that he knew our names. though I shouldn't have been. Anton clearly had done his research before approaching me. Emma's eyes were as big as saucers as she took in the luxurious car. "Mommy, it's like a princess car." I helped her into the back seat, noticing with relief that a booster seat had already been installed. The thoughtfulness of this detail was oddly disarming. "Will Mr. Anton be riding with us?" I asked the driver as I slid in beside Emma. "Mr. Volkov had early meetings," the driver replied. "He'll meet you at the shop later today." I felt a mix of relief and disappointment, which confused me. Anton Volkov was dangerous, intimidating. I should be glad for the reprieve from his intense presence, yet some small, traitorous part of me had been looking forward to seeing him again. The drive to Soho took us through morning traffic. Emma's face pressed to the window as she took in the sights of the city waking up. When we arrived at our destination, I was momentarily speechless. Bloom was nothing like the small flower shop I'd imagined. It occupied the ground floor of an elegant building, its facade a stunning combination of glass and brushed steel. Through the windows, I could see displays of exotic flowers arranged in artistic installations that looked more like museum pieces than commercial arrangements. "This is where Mommy works now?" Emma asked, clearly impressed. "I guess so," I murmured, suddenly feeling woefully unprepared. The driver escorted us inside, where we were met by a sleek, immaculately dressed woman with a severe bob and sharp eyes. "Lily Carter?" she asked, extending a manicured hand. "I'm Vivian Park, operations manager for all of Mr. Volkov's retail ventures. Welcome to Bloom." Her handshake was firm, professional, her eyes assessing as they took in my modest clothing, and then Emma, who was half hiding behind my legs. "And this must be Emma," Vivian said, her voice softening slightly as she crouched down to Emma's level. "Would you like to see where you'll be spending your days while your mom works? We have a wonderful children's area upstairs." Emma nodded shyly, and Vivian straightened, gesturing toward an elevator at the back of the shop. "Let's get you both settled in." The elevator opened onto a space that looked nothing like any daycare I'd ever seen. Bright, airy, with natural wood furnishings and educational toys carefully arranged in activity centers. Two caregivers greeted us warmly, introducing themselves as Ms. Jen and Mr. David. "We're so excited to have you join us, Emma," Ms. Jen said, kneeling to show Emma a shelf of books. "Would you like to see what we'll be doing today?" As Emma was drawn into conversation with the caregivers, Vivian pulled me aside. "The Children's Center is available whenever the shop is open. We understand that retail hours can be unpredictable." She handed me a tablet. "You'll need to fill out some forms. Emergency contacts, allergies, that sort of thing." I completed the forms, trying not to show my amazement at the facility. This wasn't just a daycare. It was the kind of early childhood education center wealthy Manhattan parents fought to get their children into. "Will she be the only child here?" I asked, noticing no other kids were present. "No, we have 5 other children who regularly attend, all children of key employees in Mr. Volkov's various enterprises." Vivian checked her watch. "The others will arrive within the hour." After making sure Emma was comfortable, and she certainly seemed to be, already engaged in building something elaborate with magnetic tiles, Vivian led me back down to the shop. "Mr. Volkov has instructed me to get you oriented today," she said as we exited the elevator. "Let's start with a tour." Bloom was even more impressive inside than it had appeared from the street. The main space was divided into carefully designed display areas, each showcasing different styles of arrangements. The flowers themselves were unlike any I'd handled. Rare orchids, proteas, flowers I couldn't even name. Our clients include celebrities, luxury hotels, fashion houses, and high-net-worth individuals planning special events, Vivian explained as we walked. We also maintained standing orders for several penthouses and corporate headquarters. She led me through a door at the back into a large workspace where 3 people were busy creating arrangements. "This is our design studio. You'll primarily work here." The designers looked up briefly, giving me curious glances before returning to their work. None of them seemed particularly welcoming. "And through here," Vivian continued, opening another door, "is your office." I blinked in surprise. "My office?" "As creative director, yes." She stepped aside to let me enter. The space was small but beautifully appointed, with a desk of polished concrete, a comfortable chair, and shelves lined with books on floral design and botany. A large window overlooked a small courtyard garden. But I thought I was being hired as a designer, I said, confused. Vivian's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. Mr. Volkov was quite clear. You are the new creative director. She tilted her head. He didn't tell you? He mentioned the possibility of advancement, I said carefully. But I assumed that would come after I'd proven myself. A flicker of something, perhaps respect, crossed Vivian's face. Mr. Volkov rarely does things in the expected way. She checked her watch again. Now, shall we discuss your first assignments? The next several hours passed in a blur of information: client profiles, ordering systems, design aesthetics, staff responsibilities. By lunchtime, my head was spinning, but I was also exhilarated. This was challenging work, creative work, the kind of opportunity I'd never dreamed I'd have. Take some time to familiarize yourself with the design books, Vivian suggested as she prepared to leave for a meeting, and perhaps use the company card Mr. Volkov provided to purchase some appropriate attire. Her eyes flicked over my simple blouse and skirt. We maintain a certain aesthetic here. I nodded, flushing slightly at the implied criticism. Of course. After she left, I spent some time browsing the books on my shelves, marveling at the artistry in the photographs. Then I heard a commotion in the main shop, voices raised in deference and something like alarm. Anton had arrived. I stepped out of my office just as he strode into the design studio, his presence immediately dominating the space. He wore a charcoal suit today, with a steel blue tie that matched his eyes. The designers who had barely acknowledged me earlier jumped to attention, suddenly busy and alert. Those ice blue eyes found me immediately, and he changed course, heading directly toward me. Lily, he said, my name rolling off his tongue like he was tasting it. How are you finding your first day? It's overwhelming, I admitted, especially since I apparently have a different position than I expected. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. You're displeased about the promotion? I'm confused by it, I clarified. I have no experience managing people or running a business. Experience can be acquired. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Talent and loyalty are far more rare commodities. His gaze was penetrating, searching. How is Emma settling in? The question surprised me. Well, I think the facility is amazing, he nodded, satisfied. I have high standards for all aspects of my businesses. His phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, his expression hardening momentarily. I have matters to attend to, but I wanted to welcome you personally. He turned to leave, then paused. Join me for dinner tonight, 8 o'clock. There are things we should discuss. It wasn't phrased as a question. I can't leave Emma. Bring her, he said simply. My home. The driver knows the address. Before I could respond, he was gone, leaving me standing in the doorway of my inexplicable new office, feeling like I'd been caught in a whirlwind. Throughout the afternoon, I checked on Emma several times, relieved to find her happily engaged with the other children who had indeed arrived. There were 6 in total, ranging from 3 to 7 years old. Emma seemed especially taken with a little boy named Misha, who had the same striking blue eyes as Anton. At 5 o'clock, Vivian reappeared. You should go shopping before your dinner with Mr. Volkov, she said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. I can take you to a few suitable boutiques. What about Emma? She can stay in the children's center until 7. That should give us enough time. I hesitated, uncomfortable with the idea of leaving Emma longer on her first day in a new place. But Vivian's expression brooked no argument, and I suspected refusing would be reported back to Anton. All right, I agreed reluctantly. Let me just tell her I'll be back soon. The shopping expedition was yet another surreal experience. Vivian shepherded me through exclusive boutiques where everything cost more than my monthly rent, selecting dresses, blouses, skirts, and shoes with ruthless efficiency. Each time I balked at a price tag, she simply said, Mr. Volkov insists, and handed the item to a sales associate. By 7, I had a wardrobe that would have taken me years to afford on my own. We returned to Bloom, where I found Emma tired but happy, clutching a drawing she'd made of what appeared to be our family. Now with the addition of a tall figure in a dark suit. That's Mr. Anton, she informed me when I asked. Misha said he's the king of everything. I exchanged a look with Ms. Jen, who shrugged apologetically. Kids pick up things, she said quietly. Back in the Bentley, now loaded with shopping bags, I changed into one of my new outfits. A simple but elegant navy blue dress that Vivian had insisted would be appropriate for dinner at Anton's home. As we drove through the city toward what the driver informed me was the Upper East Side, I tried to prepare myself for whatever awaited us. But nothing could have prepared me for Anton Volkov's home, a magnificent townhouse that occupied what must have been at least $50 million worth of Manhattan real estate. As the Bentley pulled up to the entrance, Emma pressed her face to the window. "Is this a castle, Mommy?" she whispered, eyes wide. Looking up at the imposing facade with its perfectly restored historical details and discreet security cameras, I couldn't help but think she wasn't far wrong. "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "But I think we're about to meet the king." The door opened before we reached it, revealing a distinguished older man in what appeared to be a butler's uniform. "Ms. Carter, Miss Emma." He greeted us with a slight bow. "Mr. Volkov is expecting you. Please come in." Emma gripped my hand tightly as we stepped into an entrance hall that took my breath away. Soaring ceilings, marble floors, a sweeping staircase that belonged in a period film. The butler took our coats with practiced efficiency. "Wow," Emma whispered, her voice echoing slightly in the vast space. "Indeed, Miss Emma," the butler said with the hint of a smile. "I'm Mr. Hayes. If you'll follow me, please." He led us through the house, each room more impressive than the last. The decor was elegant and clearly expensive, but not ostentatious. All clean lines and understated luxury. I noticed security personnel positioned discreetly throughout, their eyes tracking our movements. We arrived at a large dining room where Anton stood waiting, his tall figure silhouetted against floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city lights. He turned as we entered, those blue eyes immediately finding mine. "Lily," he said, crossing the room to greet us. "And this must be Emma." He crouched down to my daughter's eye level, something I wouldn't have expected from a man like him. "Hello, Emma. I'm Anton. I've heard you made friends with Misha today." Emma nodded, suddenly shy. "He said you're the king of everything." A smile flickered across Anton's face, genuine amusement softening his harsh features. "Misha has a vivid imagination. I'm no king, just a businessman, with a castle," Emma added, looking around the room with wide eyes. "Just a house," Anton corrected gently. "Though a large one, I admit." He straightened, turning his attention to me. "You look lovely, Lily." The compliment was delivered with such matter-of-fact confidence that I felt myself blushing. "Thank you. This has been quite a day. The first of many," he said, gesturing toward the table. "Shall we?" The dining table was set for 3, I noticed with surprise. Anton had already planned for Emma to join us. A booster seat had been placed at one of the settings. "I took the liberty of arranging a child-friendly menu," Anton said, helping Emma into her seat, "though I assure you it's still of the highest quality." We settled in, and servers appeared almost instantly with the first course, a simple soup for Emma, something more sophisticated for Anton and me. As we ate, Anton asked Emma gentle questions about her day, her favorite books, her likes and dislikes. She answered with increasing animation, her initial shyness forgotten. I watched them interact, bemused. This was not the dangerous, intimidating man I'd met on the street. With Emma, he was patient, attentive, almost paternal. "Mommy says we might get a bigger apartment now," Emma announced between spoonfuls of soup. Anton's eyes flicked to mine. "Does she?" "Well, your mother is very talented. She deserves nice things." He took a sip of his wine. "Actually, I have a proposition about that very matter." My guard, which had lowered slightly during the pleasant dinner, immediately shot back up. "Oh?" "There's an apartment in a building I own on the Upper West Side," he said casually. 3 bedrooms, doorman, security, near good schools. It's vacant at the moment." I set down my fork. "That's very kind, but we couldn't possibly afford." "It comes with the position," Anton interrupted smoothly. "All my executives are provided with suitable housing. It's a standard part of the compensation package." I'm hardly an executive, I protested. You're the creative director of one of my premium businesses. His tone made it clear this was not a point he would concede. The apartment is yours if you want it. Rent-free. Emma was watching our exchange with interest, clearly picking up on the tension. Can I have my own room there? She asked hopefully. Anton smiled at her. You can have your own room, decorated however you like. Anton, I said, struggling to keep my voice even, could we discuss this privately? His eyes held mine for a moment. Then he nodded. Emma, would you like to see something special while your mother and I talk? My housekeeper has 2 kittens in the kitchen. Emma's face lit up. Kittens? Can I, Mommy, please? Before I could answer, Anton pressed a button on the table, and Mr. Hayes appeared. Please take Miss Emma to see Mrs. Petrovich's kittens, he instructed. As Emma eagerly followed the butler out, I turned to Anton. You're moving awfully fast. Yesterday I was selling flowers on a street corner. Today I'm a creative director with an office. Now you're offering us an apartment? I recognize potential and act accordingly, he said, refilling my wine glass. Why waste time with unnecessary steps? Because normal people don't operate this way, I said, frustration bleeding into my voice. Normal people don't offer strangers high-paying jobs and free apartments without expecting something in return. His expression turned serious. You think I want something from you, don't you? I challenged. He set down his glass, those blue eyes intense. I want your loyalty, Lily. Your commitment to excellence. Your dedication to my business interests. He leaned forward slightly. Is that so unreasonable, for what you're offering? No, I admitted. That's what makes it suspicious. A smile slowly spread across his face. You fascinate me, Lily Carter. Most people would just take what's offered without question. I'm not most people. No, he agreed softly. You're not. He sat back, studying me. There is another reason for my generosity. A personal one. My heart rate accelerated. Which is? I know what it's like to watch a mother struggle alone, he said, his accent thickening slightly. To see her work herself to exhaustion trying to provide, to go hungry so her child can eat. I stared at him, caught off guard by this glimpse of vulnerability. I came to this country with nothing. Anton continued, his gaze distant now. My mother cleaned houses, worked night shifts, sold whatever she could to keep us alive. She died young, worn out from the struggle. His eyes refocused on me, sharp and penetrating. Emma deserves better. So do you. I didn't know how to respond. This unexpected humanity complicated the image I'd formed of him, as a cold, calculating predator. The apartment is yours, he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't negotiable. No strings attached beyond what I've already stated. Your work, your loyalty. Before I could respond, Emma's excited voice echoed down the hall, and she burst back into the room, eyes bright with excitement. Mommy! The kittens are so tiny. Mrs. Petrovich says I can visit them whenever I want. She climbed back into her seat, launching into a detailed description of the kittens. Anton watched her with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, something like longing, mixed with determination. Whatever his motives, I realized, they weren't as simple as I'd assumed. As the evening progressed, I found myself relaxing despite my misgivings. Anton was an attentive host, ensuring Emma was comfortable and entertained. By the time dessert arrived, a chocolate confection that made Emma's eyes widen with delight, she was chattering away to him as if they were old friends. When Emma began to yawn, Anton nodded to Mr. Hayes. I think it's time we got our guests home. Actually, I said, making a sudden decision. If the apartment offer is genuine, could we see it tonight? Anton's eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded, of course. He turned to Mr. Hayes. Have the car brought around. We'll take Ms. Carter and Emma to West End Avenue. The drive to the Upper West Side was quiet, Emma dozing against my side. Anton sat across from us, his expression thoughtful as he watched us. Why did you change your mind? He asked softly. I stroked Emma's hair, considering my answer. I'm still not sure I have, I admitted. But I'd like to see what you're offering before I refuse it. He nodded, satisfied with my honesty. The building, when we arrived, was elegant. but less ostentatious than his townhouse, a pre-war structure with a stately facade and a uniformed doorman who jumped to attention when he saw Anton. "Good evening, Mr. Volkov," the doorman said, hurrying to open the door. "James," Anton acknowledged with a nod. "This is Ms. Carter. She'll be moving into 12B. The presumption should have irritated me, but I was too tired to argue. We took the elevator to the 12th floor, Emma now fully asleep in my arms. Anton unlocked the door to 12B and stepped aside to let me enter. The apartment was beautiful, spacious and bright even at night, with polished hardwood floors, high ceilings, and windows that showcased the city lights. It was fully furnished in a style that was both elegant and comfortable. "There are 3 bedrooms down that hall," Anton said quietly, careful not to wake Emma. "The master suite has an ensuite bathroom. There's another full bath for the other rooms." I walked through slowly, taking it all in. The kitchen with its marble countertops and high-end appliances. The living room with its plush sofas and fireplace. The dining room that could easily seat 8. "This is..." I trailed off, overwhelmed. "Yours," Anton finished for me. He reached into his pocket and produced a set of keys, placing them on the counter. "Move in whenever you're ready." "Tomorrow, if you wish." I looked at him, still searching for the catch, the hidden cost. "Anton, why are you really doing this?" He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. "Because I can," he said simply. "Because you deserve it. Because Emma deserves it." His eyes held mine, intense and unreadable. "Is that so hard to believe?" Yes. It was hard to believe. Nothing in my life had prepared me for this kind of generosity without strings attached. But standing there in that beautiful apartment, with Emma asleep in my arms and Anton watching me with those intense blue eyes, I found myself wanting to believe him. "We'll move in tomorrow," I said softly, the decision feeling both terrifying and right. Something flashed in Anton's eyes, satisfaction perhaps, or triumph. But all he said was, "I'll have movers sent to your current apartment in the morning." When he left us that night, after ensuring we had everything we needed to stay comfortably in the apartment, I put Emma to bed in what would be her new room. She barely stirred as I tucked her into the luxurious bed that made her look even smaller than usual. I stood in the doorway watching her sleep, wondering if I had just made the best decision of my life or the worst mistake. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of change. Our few belongings were moved into the new apartment, looking pitifully sparse until Anton arranged for a decorator to fill in the gaps with tasteful furnishings. Emma's room was transformed into a child's paradise, complete with a canopy bed, a reading nook filled with books, and a toy chest overflowing with carefully chosen playthings. At Bloom, I threw myself into learning everything I could about the business. The other designers gradually warmed to me as they realized I wasn't there to disrupt their work, but to enhance it. I found I had a genuine talent for creating the kind of dramatic, artistic arrangements the shop was known for, and my ideas for new signature styles were well received by both the staff and our elite clientele. Anton visited the shop regularly, always finding a reason to check on my progress. Each time, his eyes would seek me out immediately, that intense gaze making my pulse quicken, despite my best efforts to remain professional. He invited us to dinner at his home at least twice a week, and Emma grew increasingly attached to him. She would rush to greet him whenever we arrived, chattering about her day and the friends she'd made at the children's center. He listened to her with a patience and attention that still surprised me, remembering details about her stories and asking follow-up questions days later. It was during one of these dinners, after Emma had been escorted off to play with the now slightly larger kittens, that Anton finally told me more about himself. "My father was a low-level enforcer for the Russian mob in Brighton Beach," he said, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "He was killed in a territory dispute when I was 8. My mother had no money, no protection." His eyes were distant, focused on memories I could only imagine. "We survived because she was strong, resourceful, but she never had a chance to build anything for herself. Is that why you're helping us?" I asked. "Because we remind you of your mother?" His gaze refocused on me, sharp and penetrating. "Partly," he admitted. "But there's more to it than that." He set down his glass, You interest me, Lily. Your resilience, your determination. The way you shield Emma from the harshness of your circumstances without making her feel deprived. Any mother would do the same, I said, uncomfortable with his praise. No, he said firmly. Many would crumble under the pressure, turn to drugs, alcohol, abandon their responsibilities. You didn't. I thought of some of the other single mothers I'd known in our old neighborhood, women who had indeed succumbed to the crushing weight of poverty and desperation. I had Emma to consider. Exactly. He leaned forward. That devotion, that loyalty, it's rare, valuable. His expression turned contemplative. Have you noticed anything unusual about our clientele at Bloom? The abrupt change of subject caught me off guard. Unusual how? The type of clients, the timing of their visits, the arrangements they prefer. I had noticed some patterns, certain clients who never appeared in the shop's official appointment book, but were always accommodated immediately. Unusual arrangements that contained specific flowers in specific numbers, deliveries that were handled only by trusted couriers. Are you using the flower shop for something else? I asked carefully. A smile curved his lips, perceptive. Yes and no. He sat back, studying me. Flowers move freely across borders. They're perishable, replaced frequently. No one questions regular deliveries of fresh flowers to hotels, restaurants, private residences. The implication was clear. Money laundering? Among other things. His tone was casual, as if discussing the weather. The floral business is legitimate, profitable, but it serves other purposes as well. I should have been shocked, appalled. Instead, I found myself nodding slowly, pieces falling into place. That's why you made me creative director so quickly. You needed someone who understood the flowers but wasn't involved in the other side. Precisely. He raised his glass in a mock toast. You see the patterns, but you're not compromised by them. Is that supposed to make me feel better about being complicit in illegal activities? I asked, but there was less heat in my voice than I would have expected. You're not complicit, Lily. You're creating beautiful arrangements that bring joy to people. His eyes held mine. What happens beyond that is my concern, not yours. And if I wanted it to be my concern? The question surprised even me. Anton's eyebrows rose slightly. Are you saying you want to be more involved in my business? I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. The line between right and wrong had begun to blur since Anton entered our lives. What I did know was that Emma was happier than I'd ever seen her. She had stability, security. I had work that fulfilled me, that utilized my creativity in ways I'd never imagined possible, all provided by a man who was clearly involved in organized crime. I want to understand what I've gotten us into, I said finally. Not the details, but the scope. Anton considered me for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. I control various interests throughout the city. Hospitality, retail, real estate, imports. Some aspects of these businesses operate in gray areas of legality. And the risks? To you? To us? To me? Always present, but managed. His expression hardened. To you and Emma? None. I protect what's mine, Lily. Fiercely. The possessive statement should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent a shiver of something like excitement down my spine. When had I started thinking of myself as his? Is that what we are? I asked softly. Yours? He rose from his chair in one fluid motion, moving to stand beside me. His hand came to rest on my shoulder, warm and heavy. What do you think? I looked up at him, at the intensity in those blue eyes, and felt something inside me shift, like a lock turning. I think you didn't offer me this job because of my flower arrangements. A smile curved his lips. Not entirely, no. His hand moved to cut my cheek, his touch surprisingly gentle for a man with such power. From the moment I saw you on that street corner, something in me recognized something in you. A kindred spirit, perhaps, someone who understands survival. I should have pulled away. I should have gathered Emma and fled from this dangerous man and his criminal empire. Instead, I leaned into his touch, craving the warmth of his palm against my skin. What happens now? I whispered. That depends on you, Lily. His thumb traced my cheekbone. I've given you glimpses of my world. You can choose to remain at its periphery, running bloom, living in comfort with Emma, or you can step further in, partner with me in all things. His eyes burned into mine, but know this. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. I thought of Emma, of the life we'd had before Anton, the cold, the hunger, the constant fear. Then I thought of her face when she ran to greet him, the joy in her eyes when she showed him her drawings, the way she'd begun to look for him at the dinner table, saving stories to tell him specifically. And I thought of myself, the growing anticipation I felt when I knew he would visit the shop, the way my skin warmed under his gaze, the dreams that had begun to haunt my nights. I crossed a line the moment I got into your car that first night, I said, rising to face him. I think we both know that. His hand slid to the back of my neck, drawing me closer. Say it, Lily. I need to hear you say it. I'm yours, I whispered, the words feeling like both a surrender and a claiming. We're yours. His lips claimed mine with a hunger that matched the fire building inside me. There was nothing gentle in his kiss. It was possession, pure and simple. And I met it with a fervor that surprised us both. 3 months later, I stood in the master bedroom of Anton's townhouse, our townhouse now, adjusting Emma's hair ribbon as she twirled in her new dress. Do I look pretty, Mommy? She asked, her eyes bright with excitement. The prettiest flower girl ever, I assured her, smoothing a stray curl. Are you ready? She nodded enthusiastically. Misha said we get to throw real rose petals, and Uncle Mikhail said I can have 2 pieces of cake. I smiled at the mention of Anton's second-in-command, who had become Emma's honorary uncle, and spoiled her shamelessly. 1 piece at a time, I cautioned, though I knew it was futile. No one denied Emma anything these days, least of all Anton. There was a soft knock at the door, and Vivian entered, resplendent in her maid-of-honor dress. It's time, she said, her usual brisk manner softened by the occasion. Anton is getting impatient. I looked at my reflection one last time. The custom gown that hugged my curves before flowing into a dramatic train. The diamond earrings that had been Anton's first gift to me. The simple but enormous diamond on my left hand. Let him wait, I said with a smile. A queen is never late. Emma giggled, delighted with this reminder of the fairy tale we now lived. As I walked down the aisle toward Anton, his eyes locked on mine with that same intensity that had captivated me from the beginning, I knew the truth of what we had become. He was no fairy tale prince, and I was no innocent princess. We were survivors who had recognized in each other the same fierce determination to protect what was ours. And now, what was his was mine. The power, the wealth, the danger. I embraced it all, just as I embraced the man waiting for me at the altar, his face softening with an emotion only Emma and I ever witnessed. The priest spoke the traditional words, but as I repeated my vows, I made my own private promises. To be Anton's partner in all things, to help him build his empire, to stand beside him against anyone who threatened what was ours. When he slipped the wedding band on my finger to join the engagement ring, Anton whispered words meant only for me. From street corner to queen, my Lily. I smiled up at my dangerous, beautiful husband as he sealed our vows with a kiss. The poor girl who had just wanted to sell a bouquet was gone forever. In her place stood the wife of Anton Volkov, ready to rule their world by his side, and I wouldn't have it any other way.